It's been a little bit over 10 months since I moved to Portugal. Do I have any regrets about it? Do I regret leaving Italy to move to Portugal? That's what I want to talk about this week in this week's episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter. Welcome, I'm Rafael de Furia. Let's get this episode started and roll that intro. Hello there, I'm Rafael de Furia, back at it again for another Friday night. Actually, just one thing before we get started. I am thinking about changing what day this gets uploaded. So for those of you who are watching this, if you were to choose between a Sunday upload or a Monday upload, which would you prefer and why? Or don't change anything, leave it at Friday night. Curious to hear your opinions down below. But let's get into this episode. Do I regret moving to Portugal? I'm just going to answer the question now rather than make you wait till the end. No, I do not regret moving to Portugal. Are there things here that sometimes make me think, was it the right choice or could there have been a better choice? Maybe. There are some little hiccups from time to time that I can say I have found annoying, but it's not necessarily amongst the things that are really so impactful on a day-to-day basis, more so the things that you will have to deal with from time to time. So, for example, ordering things online here, because there isn't an Amazon directly here in Portugal, the shipping times can be a little bit wonky for how long things take. It could be because of everything going on, but it also could be because I'm just not simply in Spain to be able to order properly from Amazon Spain. So even say I want to order from Germany, sometimes I can get an order from Amazon Germany faster than I can from Amazon Spain. It seems so far the way that things can work on Amazon Spain can be a little interesting. Also, Amazon Germany does have an English version of the website. Another thing, though, that has come up that I can say that has been a little bit, I would say, frustrating to deal with is to make an appointment with the doctor on the public healthcare system. At the local health clinic that I would have to go to make an appointment, I've tried going a number of times and I've heard a couple of different stories. One time they say, oh, you have to come at the end of the month. Only at some point at the end of the month on a specific date will you be able to book a consultation with the doctor. It's funny, they do use the word consulta in Portuguese for an appointment with your doctor. I just thought that was funny, a consult. It makes sense. But then I come in at the end of the month and they say, oh, no. Today's not the day. We don't know yet when the day is. Just come, it's fine. Come any day, Saturday or Sunday, not a problem. You can make your appointment. You go on Saturday or Sunday. They say, oh, no, you can't make an appointment today. You have to wait till the end of the month. It's like, it is the end of the month, man. Like, how can I do it? And then, so whatever, go back the next day and say, oh, sorry, no, it's not possible to make an appointment. You have to wait till next month, the end of next month. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the deal is. Even though my Portuguese is enough to get through the interaction to try and figure it out, I get different stories each time I go. So dealing with the public healthcare system from that perspective so far has been a little bit annoying. I'm very grateful that I'm actually doing quite well. And it's not urgent that I need to go, but it would be good to be able to go and see a doctor and be able to have that ability to make an appointment. So that's something that I've been going through the process of to figure out how that all works. But I'd rather not stay so much on the negative side because really, overall, my experience being here has been very positive, and actually so much so, I actually spoke about it in an interview that I recently did with the city here where I live, Braga. They have this project called Diversidade. It's a play on words between the word diversidade and cidade, diversity and city. So it's like diverse city. They talk to people from other countries. If you go onto my page on the community tab, there's actually a link there, and I'll maybe try to put a link to it up in the corner or down in the comment section below, because really overall, I do have a lot of very positive things to say about living here. Those are just some of the little bumps along the road that have come away. Actually, the way that I kind of put it in the video was that I can't really say that there's a negative necessarily to living here. It's that the few things that have come up that are negative, it's like going down a road. If there's a little pebble that comes up underneath your tire, you're not going to necessarily notice it. Like, even if it's a little thing that comes up. So overall, even those things are annoying, I can definitely deal with it and get by. So I would say, again, like some things that make me very happy with my choice is to see how welcoming to outsiders people really are in Portugal. Even though, yes, I've got Italian citizenship, I've got an Italian last name, I've got Italian ancestry. The way that people from the US, Italian Americans, are related to, I'm not going to say treated because there's not like a mistreatment, but just that you are still the American, you are still the outsider, you are still that other person from over there, from that other place that's foreign to us, even if you've grown up with that connection from your perspective, that you have felt connected to that country, or even like within your Italian American community, that your identity holds you together. That same feeling or sentiment isn't necessarily shared the other way around. It's been very interesting to see that. I do have Italian friends here, and it's been really interesting to be able to relate to certain things having lived in Italy, not because of being from a family that has Italian heritage, Italian background, but because we understand certain things about life in Italy itself. It's been interesting to have that connection. Even I've met someone here who lived about like 30 minutes away from where I used to live in Italy. They're like, how could you live there? And it's like, I know, right? Nobody lives there. Not nobody. It's a wonderful place. It actually can be great, like especially if you're wanting like a really chilled, laid back, relaxed life, because people there are very, very nice, very sweet. I still have people that I'm friendly with from there and that I look forward to going back and seeing when I get back there one of these days. But what I can say overall is that when I'm generalizing, again, I hate to have to say that I'm very broadly generalizing, that there's a more of a warm, welcoming, open feeling towards outsiders that I've seen in Portugal than I can say I've seen in Italy. And even I can say in Portugal more than I've seen in other places. Not that everything is perfect. Of course, there's always a few bad apples in every bunch. You can't avoid that no matter where you are in the world. However, I have seen a lot of people being extremely helpful with things here. And especially when it comes to the language. Like, I did record a video in Portuguese. As you can tell, like my Portuguese is not perfect. I can get by. And I do find myself in certain situations where I can't necessarily form the thought that I'm trying to say properly, but people are patient. That's something that has been really, really amazing to see. Or in a situation where I'm not able to properly get out an idea, I have seen a lot of people being very polite and very kind and understanding, really that's the word, about the lack of ability to speak the language. And even I have had interactions on the phone with different offices or bank or this or that or the other, whatever it may be. And I say, excuse me, do you speak English? And they say, oh, I'm so sorry, my English is not so great. And then their English is like perfect. And then they, at the end of the call, they say, oh no, I'm sorry, my English isn't better. I'm embarrassed. Like, no, your English is perfect. You're speaking great. And this is, we're in your country. I'm so grateful that you are able to speak to me in English for this interaction. Like I've had that with banks, and it's been so nice to be able to have that. Or even when dealing with the medical system and calling up on the phone, or different companies that I've had to call up. And usually I can get through a lot of situations in Portuguese, but there are sometimes it's like, sorry, do you speak English? This is a little bit beyond my level here. And I actually have had, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this. I probably have at some point, but I have had a number of situations in Italy where I was on the phone or even in person, even at a bank, and saying, excuse me, do you speak English? And they say, no, siamo in Italia, parliamo in italiano. Cazzo. And the funny thing is, there was one time in particular, I don't want to say the name of the company that I was on the phone with. Maybe I said it in the past, but I'm not going to say it again. But it was an interaction regarding an online purchase. I was on the telephone support line, speaking to them in Italian, asked if they spoke English. No, siamo in Italia, parliamo italiano. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, it's a bit strong, but okay. And for those who don't understand, we are in Italy, we speak Italian. And that was something that I'm not going to say I grew accustomed to, but I wasn't necessarily as surprised, but maybe by some people's tone when they said it. But anyway, we go through the conversation, we get through, the guy hears I'm struggling. And then he says, oh, where are you from? I said, I'm from the US originally. He said, oh, in that case, then we can speak in English. Like, excuse me, just because I'm from the US, now we can speak in English? And so I was like, whatever. I was trying to be friendly to the guy. And I asked him, oh, so where are you from? And he said, oh, I'm from Egypt. Like, okay, buddy, cool. So he wasn't even Italian, and he was like, nope, siamo in Italia, parliamo italiano. Funny how that was, but I have had that situation here where people have, I don't want to say that they've been apologetic, but there's been a very different feeling like, I've never heard someone say "Estamos em Portugal, falamos em Portugal, caralho." Like, I haven't heard anybody say that except for like maybe a friend when we're joking around. And actually, I've been the one that said that to friends like that. Like, it's been a group of mixed people, a couple Portuguese people, a couple people from different countries, and this and that. And then some of the Portuguese people and I switch over into Portuguese. And then there's some other people there, and they're not understanding. They're like looking at us, and like, so then I'll joke and say, "Estamos em Portugal, falamos português." We're in Portugal, we speak Portuguese. So I've never heard it in any kind of sense, in any kind of way, being used as a separation or as like, oh, you need to conform to this or that. I mean, I think it's polite to be able to speak in the local language. That again, there's this like warmth and very open welcomingness that I've seen here that I haven't seen in other countries. And I'm not saying Italy is the only country where I've seen that, but it's just because it's the country that I lived in before living in Portugal. I'm only using that as an example because even in the States, I've heard people say that before. Like, come on, let's be real here. This is not a unique thing to just one country in the world. Also, even while I'm comparing Portugal and Italy, there's one thing that's been quite refreshing here that I've kind of felt is maybe a bit silly, but I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but when I go out here, just for whatever, whether it's shopping or going into town, going to a cafe, whatever it is, I don't feel the need to dress up as much as I did in Italy. And it's funny because I've met Americans here that are like, oh, we're here and it's really so wonderful. Like, people dress up when they go out. I'm like, oh, it's interesting. By comparison to Italy, it's like dressing down a little bit. I mean, of course, it depends on where you are, but it's been really refreshing to be able to have kind of a middle ground where you're dressing well to go out, taking pride in how you look, but you're not feeling like you have to dress like you're ready to go down the catwalk and have to dress to impress. And in Italy, there were times that I did feel that a little bit. Of course, if you're going to be in certain places, you're not going to feel that. Like, it's not going to be everywhere. It's just one of those funny little things that I can't really properly explain, but it's just a feeling that when you're just going out and the level of comfort that you have when you're out in the world. Another thing that in Portugal that I can say that really makes me not regret the decision to move here is the cost of living. And when it comes to the cost of living, I'll talk about this more in another episode in the future, but even though some aspects of life here are very cheap, not everything here is cheap, but it's balanced. Like, you can go out and you're not spending a ridiculous amount of money. Is it always going to be cheap? No. But is it going to be expensive? It depends on what you're doing. Of course, if you want to spend 50 euros on a meal, you can find a place like that. But I can say maybe in Italy, like going to meet with friends, like to go for a dinner or for a coffee or for this or for that, that there would be situations where maybe I would pay anywhere from, say, like a third more to 50% more, or even in some cases, double the price depending on what it is and what part of the country. I mean, even I can say like going out for a slice of cake or for a little pastry. Here in Portugal, I found to be actually a bit cheaper than in Italy. And Italy, in many cases, can already be less expensive than in the US. So like, we're talking about like very reasonable here. So it's even kind of shifted my mentality towards like what's cheap and what's expensive now. And like, I've looked at like comparing prices to different parts of the world for different things. And I'm like, oh, how could you guys be paying that for that little thing? Oh, for a cola? That is absurd. Not that I drink cola. Your frame of reference changes depending on where you are in the world. And I can say that I'm very happy to be able to be in one place and remain here. And if I have to be in one place, Braga itself is a really nice balance, like I've mentioned before, between being in a place that feels like a city, but also a small town at the same time. It's got a lot going on. There's always events, there's always cafes, there's always things to do, but you don't have the normal hustle and bustle of like a place like Lisbon or Porto. You can have a little bit of hustle and bustle here, but again, you can still feel like at the end of the day, you can go out for a vacation. Another thing that I mentioned in the interview that was just released the other day, that it's a really nice feeling to have. Another thing that I enjoy about Braga specifically is it has different parts to the town that have different feelings to them. And even just walking in the center, you're not going to necessarily walk through the same place, do the same round in 10 minutes like you might in some other small villages like you could here in Portugal. Like you walk through and you're done with the whole village in 10 minutes or so. Whereas here, if you go out and you take a walk, if you go into the center, or if you go out of the center, or if you go to one mall, you go to another mall, like you're not going to go to the same place. You're not going to get and fall into like a pattern and turn yourself into a drone and just on autopilot that you walk out the door, you take a right, you take a left, you go straight, you go down the block, you this, you that. No, you're always keeping it fresh. And that's something that I enjoy being able to have. And this is not a knock on Italy. And I don't want that to be misunderstood about this part of the video. Like could be said about anywhere versus being in a small town versus being in a big city. But this is why I'm glad I'm in a place like Braga. Do I think every once in a while that there are certain aspects of life that would be nice to be in a place like, say, Lisbon? For someone like myself, yes, there are certain things that Lisbon could have been a really good choice for some things, but I know that Braga is great for most of the things that I'm interested in. So that's one thing that has gone back and forth in my mind. Am I planning on moving anytime soon? Absolutely not. I mean, especially even like if you look at the cost of living in Lisbon, it's like it's gone crazy in the past few years, the past decade, and it is more expensive than living in Braga. So you can have a nicer quality, more relaxed quality of life in Braga. But of course, that means you don't have some of the things that you might have like in a place like Lisbon. But even at the same time, if you want some of those things that are nice about Lisbon, like maybe being able to find, like for me, like a certain type of electronics shop or a certain type of camera store, I can get on a train and be in Porto in like under an hour, over an hour, depending on the train. So it's not like it's crazy inconvenient. Yeah, it's going to be an afternoon trip to get out there, but it's a fun city to go to. So you've got that nice balance being in a place like this. I am glad that I did take the jump and take a risk to come and live here in Portugal. Anyway, if you have any specific questions about life in Portugal, living in Portugal, whatever it may be regarding this country or even Italy, feel free to leave that down in the comment section below. Of course, a huge thank you to the patrons who make this possible on a monthly basis, as well as another huge thank you to those of you who've helped with the thanks button here on YouTube, as well as the one-time donations, rafaeldifuria.com/support, as well as the purchase of the shirts, mugs, onesies, and more on rafaeldifuria.com/NYAG gear or store.rafaeldifuria.com. Of course, all the links are down in the more info section below. Of course, as always, though, I'm Rafael Di Furia. Stay safe and healthy out there. This has been another episode of Not Your Average Globetrotter, and I will see you all next time. Later.